Hey, welcome to Draft Academy. My name is Mike. In this tutorial, I want to talk to you about using different fonts and controlling fonts in CSS. And one of the most important aspects of your website is going to be the text that's on the website. And you can use CSS to control just about every aspect of what the text is going to look and feel like, including controlling things like the color of the text, the font of the text, and the different style that the text is going to be written in. So there's a bunch of these different text attributes that we can use in HTML to make our pages look better. Over here in my web browser, I just have some sort of filler text that I found online, and I just basically have one paragraph of text, and I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways that you can style that text. The first thing is coloring text. So sometimes you might want to have text that's a different color than just the default black. I can come down here into this paragraph and we'll give it some styling. I can just say color, and I can put any color in here that I want, and it'll color the text that color. So I can say like blue, and now the text over here is going to be blue. So really you can put any color in there, and this color attribute will control the color of the font. I can also control something called font size. So this would be the size of the text that's on the screen. And font size is just going to take a unit of measurement. And there's really two units that people will normally use. The first is pixels, so I could say like 20 pixels. And now this will make the text 20 pixels big. So you can see it increased the text size over here on our browser. But another unit that a lot of web developers will use when they're creating text sizes is called EM. And EM is basically just a unit of measurement that represents the default font size on a browser. So 1 EM would be equal to the default font size on the user's browser. And that's usually like 16 pixels. So 1 EM is, essentially equivalent to like 16 pixels. But what's cool about EMs is that they can get resized as the text on the browser gets resized. And so EMs is actually the recommended unit to use when you're specifying font sizes. So you'll see if I just do 1 EM here, it's just going to be the normal text size. Whereas if I do 2 EMs, now this text should be twice as big. You can see it's exactly what happens. So an EM is obviously like a relative value. It's relative to the default size of text, which is normally, like I said, 16 pixels. So you definitely want to use this EM when you're specifying font size. Another thing we can do is specify the actual like font that's getting used. So if you use something like Microsoft Word, right, you can switch around the font in the text document. You can do the same thing in CSS. So I can specify a font family. And after here, I can just type in the name of the font family that I want to use. So you could type in something like Times New Roman, and this is inside of these single quotation marks. And now this text will start using Times New Roman, or I could just type in like Times, and it'll use, that's not super visible. We can also do something like Courier. This will be more different, and you can see the font family changes. So you can basically just pick whatever font you want and put it in here. There are some things you need to keep in mind when you're picking an HTML font. I'm over here on this website, it's W3 Schools, and they have this page called CSS Web Safe Font Combinations, and the address is just w3schools.com/CSSref/CSS_safeweb_fonts. And this page is sort of like a reference guide that you can use for different fonts that are going to be safe to use in HTML. Basically, the problem is if you specify a font that you want to use for your website and that font isn't supported by like the web browser, then the web browser is not going to have a font to display your text in. And so generally what we'll do is you'll specify a bunch of different font families. So you can see here with Times New Roman, they're specifying Times New Roman, and then as a backup, they're specifying Times, and as a backup, they're specifying serif. So serif is like this really broad category of fonts, and if Times New Roman isn't available on the browser and any sort of Times fonts aren't available, then the browser will just default to like a serif font that it has stored somewhere. So you can give each font like a couple different backups, and these will get used if that normal font can't be found. So if I wanted to use like this Arial black font right here, I could just copy this guy and I could put it inside of my HTML document, And now I should be able to use it. So I'm just gonna paste it in here. And I'm gonna have to get rid of these guys. And now I'll have a nice font that I can use, but if this Arial black font isn't available in a specific browser, then it'll back out and it'll have these backup fonts to try and use. And generally, any browser is gonna have like a default sans serif font that it'll use, so you'll be protected. So this is the way that you wanna do like font families. Another thing you can specify is font style. So instead of saying font family, we can just say font style, and we can control like different aspects of the font. So I can say like font style, and probably the most useful one would be italics. So you can specify italics here, and now we'll get all of this text. And actually this should just be italic without an S. So just italic, and now we'll get all the text as like italics text. And we can also declare what's called a font variant. And a font variant, really the most useful one is just gonna be small caps. And this will give us a font with like small capital letters. So you can see all of the letters are capital, but like they're smaller. So like this is obviously like supposed to be capital, so it's a little bit bigger than these other ones. So that's font variant. And then there's one more we can specify, which is font weight. And we can use this to make this bold. So I can say font weight bold, and now all of this text will be bold. And obviously you can combine all of those different properties, right? So I could have like bold text that's colored blue, that's using a Times New Roman font, and that's also italic. So you can combine all those different properties to control what the text is gonna look like on your website. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to Draft Academy to be the first to know when we release new content. Also, we're always looking to improve, so if you have any constructive criticism or questions or anything, leave a comment below. Finally, if you're enjoying Draft Academy and you want to help us grow, head over to draftacademy.com/contribute and invest in our future.